Welcome to this first tutorial about NURBS modeling. In this first tutorial I will show you the principle of organic modeling, but I first want to explain a little bit about the software that we're using. At the moment we're using Autodesk Alias Autostudio version 2015, and this is the one that we normally in the automotive industry use for our design area. Afterwards the data goes to the engineers and they use CATIA and ISM to actually get the services done right. The reason at the moment why, for instance, Maya and Modo are really popular in the automotive industry is because it gives the impression that, at least some of the leaders within the design industry have the impression that with using Maya and other polygon modeling software, the designers are able to make quicker principal models and get the services out quicker to get something done. I am a little bit of the old guard in that sense. I think that in Maya and in Modo, when you're initially modeling, you get all these hard-edged flat surfaces, and I find that really hard to make any judgment call on the surface itself. Which is why I have been, ever since that comment came out, I've been trying to come up with a solution that would work for me, where I could actually do really quick modeling, really quick organic modeling in Alias and actually see what I'm doing and see the surfaces that I'm creating. So that's what I'm doing here. The Alias in itself has a layout with loads and loads of different tools. I'm sure that's the same in Maya and in Modo and any other software. But from this, just like those softwares, you don't need all of this. The majority of it you will hardly ever use, but it's there in case you do need it. But to make things easier, um, rest assured it's not as difficult as it seems and not as overwhelming as it seems now. So I start first with a simple sphere. I click it over the center line. I put it here on the front and I scale it, but I put it here on the rear or back view, the front view, um, for a reason. I'm non-proportionally I'm moving it up to above the zero line, above the ground line, so that it stands on the floor. And if you see it here in perspective, it's a normal sphere. The reason why I've chosen to put it down in the back view, the front view in this case, is because all these lines are coming together to this point, and ultimately that's the most difficult point in the whole model. So I want to make sure that I can handle that easily afterwards. You will notice why in a minute. First of all, we have this thing. I have it in a separate layer, in the surfaces layer, and the surfaces layer at the moment has symmetry on. If I push symmetry off, then you see we still have the whole model. I don't need a whole model since it's symmetrical, so I'm gonna cut off one part of the model over the y-axis. Detach it. I do curve snap, and I click that off. And here I do another curve snap, and I click that, and then hopefully this model will have detached. No, it hasn't. I'll switch the shading off and do detach again over the center line and center line and center line and center line, and at one stage the thing should go right. No. And there I have the half sphere that I will detach and delete del active. As you can see now, I don't know why the heck that took so long, but um, there must be a reason for it. If you now look at this, so here I have the half model, the detached half sphere, and if I now put symmetry on, you see we still have a full sphere. If I click on the shading thing, it's still as normal as it was before. So there's no issue there. I put it on shader, and now I'm gonna click on the CVs. We don't have polygons, we have CVs, and we have to manipulate the CVs. Now I take this whole object in itself and I'm gonna stretch it out a little bit in this direction to make it longer. And then I'm gonna have fun with it, because I just want to make sure that I make a shape that I really like. So in this case, for instance, I pick these front CVs. I'm gonna move them down a little bit, not that much, because that was a little bit too much. Curve snap off, move them down. I have the pivot point. I'll make sure that I put the pivot point in the center of the nose. So curve snap on and put the pivot point there. And then I can non-proportionally scale that nose piece to make it a little bit more like a car. Well, like a car. And move it further down. And now I'm gonna take a few more of these CVs here at the front. Maybe I don't do that. Maybe I'll take it in the side view, these ones, and make these wider, non-proportionally scale it. And then I take these rows of CVs, so this hull, select the hull, and then I can make that non-proportionally scale it a bit wider. And then this here, I pick this hull. I first of all non-proportionally scale it a bit lower, and then move it further down. And then non-proportionally scale it a bit wider as well. And that's the thing, I can just move things around and just play with it. So I get this really clean shape in itself. Now of course this is not a car, this is by far not a car, but I can increase this. As you can see, this is a pretty simple form still. Third degree curves and fifth degree, fourth degree, four spans in between. So that's pretty simple to work with. I can change this around and make this a fifth degree and this a fifth degree, which gives me a bit more space to play around with, a few more CVs, and then I can, for instance, now go to the CVs and start seeing what I can get by just playing around, sculpting things. It's just basically, I'm using this as a sculpting software at the moment, which to me, as a designer, seems really interesting. I can just experiment and see if there's shapes that I happen to come by accident. And then see if I can make something interesting. Ultimately, everything is still pretty much flowing because it's such a low density model. But of course, you can play around with that as well. In this case, for instance, I can say, okay, I want a more tight line here somewhere in this area. So how can I achieve that? Well, I can just shove some CVs over and see how far I can get. So I move this thing further out, closer to there. And you see that the edge here over this surface becomes a little tighter. This thing is clearly too high, so now I see what I can do here. And then this thing is really far down and out. What can I do with that? I think I need some extra CVs in here, so I'm gonna increase the amount of CVs here. I can do that by adding here something there, but then it's generally spreading things out. I don't like that, so I'm gonna go to the insert option and I'm gonna pick exactly where I want to insert the CV there, and then one more. See, and now I have a bit more to play with, so I pick this and move this about and move that further out, move this further up and move this one further up. See, and now I can I'm creating a little bit more of a shape that I would like, if I would like that. I'm just experimenting with this, and that's the ideal part with this is no matter what I do, I keep this form pretty simple, and no matter what I do, if I go to the zebra, our holy zebra, I still have very clean lines over everything. You see that? I click the model away and everything runs really smoothly everywhere. Of course this is a little bit tight, but we're gonna play around with that even more. And as you can see here, there's something wrong with the symmetry at the moment, so we can overcome that as well by clicking on the align symmetry. Get that sorted out at the early start now. See, so now it's symmetrical, and then I'm deleting the construction history of this, since I don't want to be limited by the construction history. I just want it to now, at this early stage, to be completely symmetrical, so I can actually get something nicely done. This is a method for experimenting and really getting used to, I think, the use of CVs instead of pushing and pulling polygons. It's quite similar and you can get similar sort of effects. The only thing is that, as you can see, the CVs are floating way above the actual surface, where your polygons normally are actually touching the surface, and you're actually pushing much closer in your polygons to get your sculpture into place. But as you can see here, I can see everything smoothly. I actually see the real surface. If they would mill this out, this would look like this. And that's one thing that I think is the advantage of doing NURBS modeling, is that you really get what you see. See, even here, everything is really smooth. Okay, let's go on and see what else we can construct here. I want to have a few more lines in here. I want to get a support thing out here for the wheels, theoretically, if there's a wheel, or maybe a center wheel. No, let's put a wheel here on the outside. So then I go again to the insert tool. I click insert and I click on a span, and I say, okay, I want one there, I want one there, and I want another one there. And now I'm gonna take this, take the shading off. I think I'm gonna need some extra CVs in this area here to be able to, because otherwise I'm influencing this way too much. So I'm again going to the insert area, putting it there, putting one there. So now ultimately you can see that my model is getting a lot heavier than before, but it's still a very simple clean shape. But it's for me to play around with and to model with, to experiment with. Afterwards we always, as soon as you know what you want, you can always go and clean this whole area up and make it into single span surfaces that we need for A-class servicing and for production. I want to make sure I'm not ultimately going below the ground line, since that one is already there. Taking this a little bit higher, and I'm going to take that one. I'm going to move that there. See, now already we're below the ground line, so I'm taking it up a little bit. I'm just really playing with it now. It's like this thing that they did at Kelty Design, Toyota Kelty Design, where they were actually getting balloons filled with plaster, and they were sculpting the balloons and then waited for the plaster to dry to get certain sculptures going, fluid sculptures, and that could be forming as the inspiration for any design, being a bit more original. See now what I'm getting? And this is now, it's symmetrical still. It's a little bit weird maybe for some people, but it's for us to get ideas from. It's really ideal. Normally I would actually start with a sketch, put a sketch on there and just roughly get this in, but in this case I'm just doing it completely by just trial and error, and it actually works quite well. And if you do this method and you put on the zebra still, everything is beautifully sculpted. You see that? Everything is still really nicely, the highlights really run perfectly, and for us highlights is always holy. Of course there are different ways of getting there, but I think this is a nice way of experimenting with different surfaces. Now if I have this whole lot here, I think that the body here, main body, shouldn't be wider than where I have this wheel thing. So the wheel sculpture, so I'm taking all of these and moving them further out, so that it has actually a wide base, a wide stance, and then I think if I want to have some wheels housed in there, or a wheel housed in there, I think it needs some space here as well. So I'm taking that one out to that level. And just see what I get. I think I need this one to get out there as well, and put it on the same height. To get a nice effect, and see what we get here, if it's not too plump. Yeah, you can see what it does now. See that? Gets a little bit on the plumpish side. So I might want to take these CVs and push them back in a little bit more. This is just a good exercise, first of all, to try and get used to pulling and pushing CVs and to see what you get, and just experimenting with the shapes. And then as well, a way to get used to using this NURBS modeling. I think this is just fun, and it should be fun, and anything you learn from this you can afterwards carry over in the more professional, boring areas. I'm just gonna switch the shading off because I'm gonna see what I get if I do this. I'm never afraid of experimenting with sculpture in this case, in this early stage, because it's just fun. So see what we get when I do that. Ooh, that's a bit weird. But take it off again, and then I'll push this forward and this further back, and see if I can make this into something that could be like a wheel housing. In itself I can, but this looks really awkward here, this area. At the moment. So what can I do about it? I pick this CV here, and I pull that out. And pull that higher. And then theoretically, it should become a bit more smooth there. Ooh, that goes really wrong. So I'll do undo. Since you've done everything with one surface, still, you can undo and redo a heck of a lot in this software. So you can really just keep on experimenting, go back and forth to what you do and don't like. This was a part that I was quite happy with. Let's leave it at this for the time being, and let's see if I can do something similar to the front. In the front I'm a bit too wide here. I realize, of course, that was my stupid mistake. But I just grab this and non-proportionally scale it again. And then see if I can make something more interesting from it.